Hello there. In this video we're going to use the FluidDesigner for 3D printing assets with Blender 2.9 and the Booltron add-on, and we're going to make a personalised pendant using some of the 2D objects and the add-on Booltron, which is also created by the same person that created Booltron. So if we go to Blender, Alright, so we need to go to Booltron and Asset Manager. Now I'm going to use Alphabet Harrington Fonts 2D, but before I do that I'm just going to use the Alphabet Harrington font, the default one. And if I select import the asset a letter C, my computer just running a bit slowly there, and if I import the asset J, so I click on import asset, and then if I just click on the J itself just to highlight it, it's not highlighted automatically, looks like it is but it isn't, and if I just reposition this J down to somewhere like that so that it's overlapping, excuse me, if I hold down the shift key and click on the letter C and go to Object and Join, those two objects will join together nicely, and if I had a ring at the top I will be able to 3D print them. Now that's not what I want to do in this case. I'm just showing you that those assets, which are actually 3D objects rather than 2D objects, those assets will join together no problem. So if I press X on the keyboard and delete them, and if I just scroll back up here, so if I just go to Booltron, sorry, and if I go to Harrington Fonts 2D, so we're going to see what happens when we've got 2D objects. So if I import the asset C onto the screen, and I'm just scrolling the center mouse button towards me, and I'm going to import the asset J. So we're just assuming somebody's initials are C and J, and if I click on the J, and if I just move it down to a sort of similar position as I've just done with the other objects, the other assets, and okay, so if we position it there, now if I hold down the shift key and click on the C here and go to Object and Join, you'll see that something weird happens. It doesn't join properly. In fact, what we've got is a hole here because these are 2D objects rather than 3D objects. So joining them together like that does not work. It's great if you want to punch a hole through an object, as you probably saw in the previous video, but does not work when you want to join objects together. So if I just do Control and Z on the keyboard to undo that join, so I've basically just separated these two objects out again. What do we need to do? Well, first of all, instead of treating these as curves, so if I highlight the C, for example, and press the Tab key to go into edit mode, you'll see there are a lot of control points around this object. This tells me that the C is a curve, and also is the object J. So if I go into edit mode again, you'll see that there are control points around it, and that means it's a curve. Now, what we need to do if we're going to join these two objects together is, well, I'll highlight the C first of all, is we need to change them to meshes. So if I go to Object and convert it from a curve into a mesh, if I press the Tab key now, you'll see that the things change. There are no control points. These points here are actually vertices of the various faces that are on the object. Alright, so we've actually converted that C into a mesh now. So if I press the Tab key to come back out of edit mode, if I do the same thing with the J, go to Object and convert the curve into a mesh, or convert it to a mesh. And again, if I press the Tab key on the keyboard, you can see that we've got a mesh there now. So I'm just going to click on Z to go back to top mode. Now, as long as you've got the Booltron add-on on your system, which you can download free from the internet and install, we can use this one here, the union, to join the two together. Now, if we just join these two objects together, and we can do that with Booltron, so if I highlight the C, hold down the Shift key and then highlight the J, and if I create a union between these two objects, if you look down in the bottom right hand corner here, it says Boolean operation result is non-manifold. And you can see some lines on the screen here. Now what is happening is because the faces of the top and the bottom of these two objects are basically in exactly the same position, if you try and join them together, create a union, you will get some errors. Alright, so it's essentially because the top faces of the letter C and the top faces of the letter J are in exactly the same location. So what we need to do is to do Control Z to undo that Boolean operation. So we've now got two separate objects again, the C and the J. And what we need to do is to move them move one of the letters in a Z direction, in other words, in the blue direction. And so if I just move it up very, very slightly, so I'm just dragging the J upwards very slightly. I've probably moved it more than I really want to do there. Let me go over to item, and the Z is 0.09. So let me just enter that value in there as 0.01 of a millimeter. So I've moved it up in the Z just the tiniest fraction. So you can see here, if I just pan it, there is a slight lip there difference between the J and the letter C in the Z direction. So if I just click on Z here to go back to my top view again, if I use the Boolean this time to join the two together, so if I hold down the Shift key and click on C and go to Booltron and create a union between the C and the J, I don't get that error message in the bottom right hand corner now. So the error message has disappeared. But what I have got is a slight lip here as a difference between this object, the J, and the C, both at the top and the bottom. Now I can sort that out by going into, if I go to View and Viewpoint and go to the front view, so I'm looking at this object from the front now, and if I just zoom in as much as possible, if I press the Tab key on the keyboard to go into edit mode, you can just see here, I'm just panning it, you can just see where there is a lip. It's those vertices there are slightly higher than these vertices here. So on the J, the vertices is slightly higher than the vertices on the C. So I'm just scrolling the center mouse button out here to change the zoom. So what I want to try and do is I want to just highlight the vertices on the top of the C here and the vertices on the top of the J. And I can do that by using the B key on the keyboard for border select. And I want to draw a border, or a box I should say, around. Now you've not got to go down too low here. You just want the vertices at the very top. So you don't want to highlight any lower than that. And what we can now do is to use the scale function. And I need to select the move icon over here so I get my blue arrow, which is the Z direction. And if I point my mouse below the object and press S for scale, now I don't want to scale in all the directions, X, Y, and Z. I just want to scale in the Z direction, Z only. So you can see the blue lines appear there. Now as I move the mouse towards the vertices points, and then when I get to them, if I click, and if I move the mouse down to the bottom again and do scale in the Z direction only, and then move the mouse towards them and then click, and then again move the mouse to the bottom, scale S and then Z only, and then move it towards the vertices again and click, that should flatten off the top face between the C and the Z. So if I zoom in now, there is no lip there anymore. And if I just deselect all those points by holding down Alt and pressing A, and press the Tab key to come out of edit mode, there is no lip now on this top surface. I've just moved the vertices very slightly, so I've taken that edge, that little lip away at the top. There is, however, one at the bottom here. If you just look very carefully, I've just turned it upside down. There is one at the bottom. So the C and the J are at slightly different levels at the bottom. And I could do exactly the same thing there, highlight the vertices along the bottom faces and scale in the Z again. And that will flatten them out at the bottom. Now I'm not going to do that in this instance because it's just repeating what I've just done. What I'm going to do is to go to File and Export. Export this as an OBJ file. And I'm going to export it to the desktop. And I'm going to call it CJ. And I notice there is already one on my desktop because I did it a few minutes ago. So I'm just going to export that OBJ file and right on top of the one that was on my desktop. And if you go to Netfab Basic and go to Project and Open, and go to the desktop and open the CJ object file, you'll see that there are some slight issues with this. All right. That's what the warning red triangle says, but it's no problem. We'll be able to repair it. So you click on the plus to repair. If you just click on it, update, you can see there's some border edge problems and some holes. And you can see where they are. It's where this yellow bit and this orangey bit is. But if we click automatic repair and execute and then update, the border edges, the orientation and the holes all go down to 0 and we've got one shell. So if we apply that repair and remove the old part, we've got an object now that will 3D print. So on the top face of the C and the J, it is in fact smooth, but there is still a lip if you just look there on the bottom face because we didn't actually use the scaling in the Z direction on those vertices just to tidy it up, but we could have done that. So that's how you can join two 2D objects together, assets from FluidDesigner for 3D printing in Blender 2.9 using the Booltron add-on. That's it for this video, so